Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks again. You are here. Once again, it's the Pregame Show Network. I am Tolly Carr, your Atlanta connection. And you know, we always got to hook up with my man, Uncle Neely, who is chilling in Boulder, Colorado here this afternoon. Neely, you've been having better weather in Boulder than we've been having in Atlanta, man. You are living the high life this spring.
Man, it has been perfect. It has been wonderful. No humidity, finally reached the 80s. Can't complain.
Do you guys have mosquitoes? I know it's a dumb question. Are there mosquitoes in Boulder, Colorado?
Let me tell you two things I have not seen in Boulder, Colorado: a mosquito and a roach.
Gnats? Do you have gnats? You do have gnats.
I've seen the gnats.
Okay.
You know, when you're out on the football field,
Okay.
sometimes you have to
All right.
do that for the gnats.
As long as there's something there to irritate you, you just can't put you completely in paradise. You got to have at least one irritant out there. So if you have a gnat, that is definitely an irritant. All right, my irritant is Miles, the director. What's up, Miles? Let's give him the rundown here to see what we're going to talk about on today's episode of The Rewind. See, Miles is an irritant because he just brought it in like bam. He didn't fade it in. The rundown just pow right on the screen there. All right, so we got the scrimmage we're going to talk about. We got Stink-a-Link. We'll tell you all about that. Two-way Trav, you can figure that one out. Sapp Daddy is killing the game right now in receiver number 3. All right, Neely, let's jump right into the scrimmage. We had one in the books from last weekend. You've had a couple of days to digest it. We had an instant reaction. Now that a few more cycles have passed of the sun, what do you think when you think back on that first scrimmage?
I loved it. I thought that, again, the energy was high. I thought that those who played participated well and at a high level. And what I really loved about it was the officiating, because when you have officials out there, it's kind of like playing street ball, Tolly. You know, you think you're doing this and you think you're doing that, but once you get in the game with a referee, some of the things you were doing, you might not be able to do in a real game. So we were tracking the calls out there, not only how many were on offense, how many on defense, but by position and by player. So the goal is to make sure when next scrimmage comes, which is this coming Saturday, clean up some of those penalties going forward. Because keep in mind, this was one of the most penalized teams in college football, particularly on pre-snap penalties. And when you have 3, 4, 5 games that you only lose by, 7 or less points, that can make a difference in the ball game, make a difference in possession, make a difference in field goal range or not. A lot of things come into play when you can clean up those silly pre-snap penalties. So that's going to be the focus going into the next scrimmage.
All right, we all remember some of those offsides that you thought we had, a stop on third down. Somebody jumps a new set of downs, and it was just a headache. Did you see a lot of offside penalties on Saturday?
Yeah, on the total offense, you had 10 penalties, and they range from illegal formation, of course, to holding and offsides. And, of course, you could always going to end up in the early stages of football, an illegal man downfield. But you had 10 penalties on the offense and only 5 on the defense. And those 5 on defense were, some holding calls, and an illegal shift, and I'm sorry, and the offsides as well. But the bulk of the penalties that you saw came on the offense side of the ball, and offensive line was the bulk of those penalties. Of the penalties that were called on offense, 10 total, 8 were on the offensive line.
Well, how much of I know you always protect the quarterback whenever you're scrimmaging one another. You don't mess up the bag, right? But how much was the defense able to really test the offensive line as far as their ability to show how they could protect Shedeur?
Oh, they go at it. There's no holding back on that phase of it. You just make sure that you whiz by or adjust what you're doing when you do get to the quarterback. But from the snap to the impact of the D-line on the offensive line or vice versa, there's no holding back in that phase. You just don't touch, don't hit, don't bother the quarterback, try not to step on his foot or anything like that. But they do track sacks or what would have been a sack. So, no, man, it's full contact, full scrimmage. So what you see is what you're getting as it relates to the defensive line being on the other side of the line of scrimmage.
All right, so we do have some content on the Pregame Show Network that will look back at that first scrimmage. So when you're there on the YouTube channel, it should be pretty easy to find. So make sure you check that out. And you can take a deep dive in case you missed our content from over the weekend. It's still up there. All right, let's move along in the show here on the Rewind. Stinkling, what is that about? Well, Mark Schlereth, he was there this weekend, and his nickname in the media that he calls himself, and other people call him that, is Stink. I totally forgot the particulars of the story, but it involves something that he would do to literally make himself stink so defensive linemen didn't want to engage with him too long. It's an easy Google thing there. But he told a great story. You can find this story at the pregameshow.com. We have an article up there that Terrace wrote about it. There will be a video embedded in that article. So check that out. The full speech, if you will, is on our YouTube channel as well. But Neely, he talked about one of his teammates, Marvin, and how Marvin, came to Idaho. He had come from UTEP, I think. They had canceled their basketball program, and he was just a stud, man, just out there killing it. And it came time, NFL draft time, and Mark Schlereth just didn't have the looks. He had been hurt a lot, but he had the talent. So his buddy Marvin, and I'm not telling this story nearly as good as he would, but his buddy Marvin said, look, just come crash my workout. They're there to look at me, but you just show up. And Schlereth did that once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. And every time he did it, his performance was better than his teammate Marvin. So you fast forward, and Marvin's invitation and Schlereth's ability to show up and show out allowed him to get drafted. And later in his career, when he was really excelling, he was in Denver, and the coach comes to him and says, hey, we got a list of guys that we're thinking about that we need to add some depth. And lo and behold, on that list was his buddy Marvin, who had hooked him up on the beginning of his career. So he paid it forward and said, sign that guy right there. And they won a Super Bowl together. The story sounds much better to hear it directly out of the mouth of Schlereth, but Neely, that, I tell my kids this. I say, look, you play sports, you're not going to remember these games. You're going to remember the camaraderie, the interactions, the relationships with your teammates more than anything else. And I thought that was just a great story about what team sports is really about. That was my favorite story that I heard this week of content that's on the Pregame Show Network.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, man. It was, an impromptu speech. Stink Mark didn't know that he was going to be called on to speak by Coach Prime, and told that story from his heart. And it really fits into what Coach Prime is trying to build here in Colorado, because since January, the arrival of players for the spring semester, he has been about relationships. Doesn't like to see people at the cafeteria tables, with their phones out and not talking to each other. Wants people to get to know each other, because he understands if we can get to know each other off the field, we're going to play better together on the field. And then also going forward, in life, everyone's not going to the NFL, but there are situations where teammates can call upon each other for other things, the rest of their days after this. And, Tyler, as you and I sit here with this gray hair, when you're 40 and 50 and you're sitting around talking, you're talking about your relationships when you were 20. These guys are in the prime of their lives right now, building lifelong relationships, going through things together. And it's hard to see it while you're in the middle of it. But as Mark was telling them, years go by and you're going to find that you're going to still be calling on those same relationships that you created during spring and fall camp.
Because those are the people you trust, because you were in the trenches, whether it's the trenches of field, the trenches of life, for guys like me and you, just, people, whether it be your fraternity or, people that you just had a relationship with in college that you can trust. Because in this world, Neely, like Drake said, we don't like new friends. No new friends. You like to call on those people that you've been with. And these things are going to be so important. And I don't know if they can really appreciate that right now, but they definitely will as time goes along. So well said. And I think that was a Drake song. I don't know. It could have been somebody else. I'm not cool. All right, let's move on with the rundown here on the Rewind. Let's get the two-way Trav. Neely, you had some content up this past week. Travis Hunter, surprise, balling out. If you look back at this past week and what Travis Hunter was able to do in practice and the scrimmage, of course, he's one of the most popular players in college football in the country. If people didn't see it, what did Trav do this week?
He did so much that I have on a Travis shirt It's just exceptional to watch him perform out there. I didn't keep up with the number of plays he did on both sides of the ball, but he did play extensively on both sides of the ball. In the red zone, you asked Coach Livingston, the defense coordinator, why was the defense in so much trouble with the odds stacked against him in the red zone? His two-word answer was Travis Hunter, that, our own defense doesn't have anything for him, and we can trust and believe that our opponent's defenses won't either. Travis is fully recovered from that liver injury they suffered against Colorado State. He's in exceptional shape, here in April. Only going to get better going forward to August as he gets stronger, faster, and puts on some more muscle and that kind of thing. But Travis is in mid-season form as far as his energy, as far as his ability out there, spending more time, on the receiver side of things, learning the nuances of route running and those kind of things that he is defense. But when you put it all together, he's probably about 50-50 each way when he's out there performing his reps on the defense and offensive side of the ball.
All right, so you got the Travis T-shirt. What's the story behind the T-shirt, man? That's pretty snazzy.
Hey, man,
there.
It's just as simple. When you're a hero, people like to rock with you. I know, Tyler, you wear Superman pajamas. I wear a Travis T-shirt.
Spider-Man, but okay, I get your point. How about the artwork behind you over what would be your left shoulder? Can we get that on a T-shirt? Because I gotta admit, Neely, I give you a hard time, but that's pretty banging right there, brother.
A group called NIGH, N-I-G-H, which is a small business Main Street economic development organization in Boulder. When I first got here, that was their welcome to Boulder gift to me. Still left a sticky note on it as well. So they designed that, gave it to me, and I said, hey, man, I'm going to put that up as my backdrop.
Oh, that is nice, man. That is really nice. I really like that. All right. I'm feeling it. Let's move on with the show here. Miles, let's serve the people up the next topic here. Let's talk about Sapp Daddy. Now, look, Neely, I love the story from Sting. That was my feel-good moment, but I think all the football heads out there are loving the video that you put out this week on the Pregame Show Network of Warren Sapp. You like to call him Sapp Daddy. And look, I make sure this is clear every week. I'm not a former football player. I did not play football. But Neely, I love watching Sapp when he does that, man. He's showcasing the skills, and then I'm like, it kind of looks like kung fu, but it's his muscle memory of getting those offensive linemen out of the way. And he does it with such ease. And I just love to watch it and hear him explain it. And the people in the comments really, really loved it. I would imagine, Neely, that the players are like, we got a coach here.
Oh, man, they are soaking it up like a sponge. They're bright-eyed when he's talking. They're leaning in when he's talking. He likes to touch them when he's talking. And what's so amazing about it, here's a guy who's years after his playing career, gold jacket, Canton, Ohio, Hall of Famer. And when he demonstrates a drill, when you look at the speed that he still has, it's like when you watch a Mike Tyson, workout, and you're like, damn, he still got it. And he makes it look so easy and simple. And then the way he explains it and teaches it, you walk off like, man, why the hell did I think of that? Like hey, man, use this arm. Don't run out wide. Just come up under right here. And when he shows them how to do it, you're just blown away at how simplistic it is, but how complex it gets in getting an advantage from the defensive lineman without picking up a penalty and being able to break away from somebody holding you. Phenomenal teaching taken out there with Sapp, man. We're going to keep on giving you those week to week, inside, Warren Sapp's teaching and how he develops these players as we go to the season. But Tyler, man, that defensive line, including the linebackers, anybody that rushes on defense, they're all ears when Sapp is talking.
All right, so Neely, Michael Jordan never even tried to coach basketball. Magic Johnson, if you're old enough to remember, he tried it for about a week, and he was like, I can't deal with these players. Deion Sanders has even said about the NFL, he's like, I'd never do that. He's like, I'd kick half the team off by halftime. My point is, most players in sports who are just your top tier Hall of Famer, you can't mention their position without mentioning their efforts. A lot of them don't get into coaching because it's frustrating because the people aren't willing to work as hard as they did coming up or don't have that natural skill. Colorado has 2 Hall of Famers on that staff. And man, they're going against the grain. Deion Sanders, we see it every week with the first person camera, and we're starting to see a lot of it now. With Sapp Daddy, if I can borrow the nickname, they love coaching, man.
Yeah, and I think that that's the characteristic that separates Coach Prime and Warren Sapp from other people of that level or echelon when they decide to coach. One, you have to still absolutely love ball, and then two, you have to have the patience / understanding to not look for yourself or expect yourself out of other people. You know, Deion Sanders can't look at this secondary and try to make them be him. Warren Sapp can't look at this D line and try to make them be him. But what they can do is look at where this kid is, where his talent level is, and make sure it is maximizing all the potential that it can in their level best. How do I get the best out of you? I think a lot of players who've reached that level can't coach because they can't turn that part of it off. They see the world through their eyes and try to make people perform the way they perform. Deion Sanders will tell you, whether it's his own children or his surrogate kids on the team, I don't expect me from them. There's only one me. What I expect from them is them putting all that they can, and let's get all out of it that we can. Warren Sapp is exactly the same way.
This is an impossible question to ask you in terms of getting a solid answer, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think a lot of people are probably having this in the back of their mind. Can the technique, can the nuances of the way Deion Sanders did it, the way Warren Sapp did it, can they teach those kids some of that? Or is it like, look, only Warren Sapp can make that happen? You know, only Deion Sanders could make you look like you were open just so I could get in there and get the interception. Like, how much of that do you think the things that they did, if a kid is willing and at least wants to soak it in and give it a try, can they pass that on? If I eloquently enough ask that question.
You did. I think there's a measurable percentage that can be passed on. There's some things that are just genetic gifts from God, where a person has, you know, more fast twitch muscle than somebody else that you just can't replicate that. That is an individual thing. But what I love about Coach Prime and Coach Sapp as it relates to this generation of players, they understand I have to teach the why. So it's one thing to teach you this hand movement or where to look or not to look, but you have to go a step further nowadays and tell them why. And I think that's where these kids on Colorado team are really getting that aha moment, because they understand Sapp is not just telling you what to do with your hands. He then stops and says, and this is why you're doing it. This is why it gives you the advantage should you do it this way. Now it becomes a choice that, oh man, I get a better chance of success doing it this way versus a coach just barking at me and this is the way we do it, shut up and do it like I did it. And I don't think that part would work here as far as them being able to accomplish or mimic what these two Hall of Famers have in them. But that instruction attached to the why, I think you see a huge benefit when that light bulb goes off.
That's a great answer. I thought I was putting you in a rock and a hard place with that question, but Neely, you knocked it out of the park. Good job.
Well, man. You know, I appreciate that, but I'm standing there arm's length away from when these two guys are coaching and teaching. And, you know, a lot of times I'm on the side of the coach or behind the coach, so I'm looking into the player's face. And you literally see that aha moment. You literally see them when Coach Sapp or Coach Sanders walk off and they're trying to still duplicate what they just learned because it was attached to here's what's going to happen should you do. Why we're doing this is because it creates this advantage versus saying, oh, man, do it because I said do it. Man, you see that light bulb off, they go out on the next rep and they execute it. Now it just has to become muscle memory. Now you just have to practice it over and over where it becomes second nature. And that's another thing that separates greats like Warren Sapp and Deion Sanders from other people. Tyler, let me give you this Bruce Lee quote, one of my most favorite quotes. Bruce Lee said, he doesn't fear the man who practices 1,000 kicks. He fears the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times.
I thought you were going to say be like water, but I like that one. I like that one too. I don't think I've heard that one, but that is profound. That is
repetition
profound.
With a purpose, not just reps for the sake of reps, but repetition with a purpose.
Repetition with a purpose. Absolutely. This isn't on the rundown, but I'm just kind of free flowing with you here, man. Neely, when you're there, what are you watching? Because you are the storyteller of the Deion Sanders journey. In my opinion, better than anyone else that's out there. what are you watching? Because I'm able to just throw out names, positions, and you just say, okay, this kid did that and that. But like, what if you had to like run down the list of things that you're watching that you have to put into your brain so you can then tell the story of what happened? Like, how many different levels of things are you paying attention to?
Man, great question. That's deeper than the one you just asked. This is the one that's going to throw me. Here's the first thing I think I look for. I think I look for things that no one else is looking at. You out there on the field, and you got 100 players out there. 25 staff people, support staff, close to 200 people out there at any given moment. And it's almost like when you watch a football game. A lot of people, when they watch a football game, they're watching where the ball is. And that's not where the game is. If you're only following the ball, you're missing 90% of the game. So there's a lot of times when I'm out there, I'm looking for what's not being watched. It's almost like being in a restaurant and you can hear all this background noise. But if you take a deep breath and calm down and focus, you can literally hear a conversation 3 tables away. At first, it just sounds like chatter, background noise, white noise. But if you focus, you can hear. So it's the same thing with the camera. I want to see those things that no one else is seeing. And then after I develop that kind of pattern with it, all right, let me mic that guy up next week, or let me follow him around the building and see what else he's up to. And then you develop those stories that are centered around the people and the personalities. This past scrimmage, we mic'd up Coach Fleet. You really got to hear how he communicates with the running backs, encourages them, coaches them, gets on their bus, whichever way it is. So you just look for those kind of things, man, and the art of storytelling. What's going on that no one else is watching?
Appreciate the man. Folks, appreciate the man. We do not know how long this journey will last. We do not know. But while this journey is going on, there is Uncle Neely chronicling the entire journey. Enjoy it while it lasts. Enjoy every moment of it. Enjoy your life. I mean, we don't know how long anything's going to be. But this has been real fun, and we look forward to bringing you more and more content. Let's go to receiver number 3. As you tell stories this year, what will be the story, you think, Neely, of receiver number 3? We know about Jimmy Horn. We know about Travis Hunter. At number 3, who's going to feel? Is it going to be committee? Is it going to be a person? What are you feeling?
I think we won't really know until after May. Because keep in mind, we've signed 2 transfers that are coming in here from rich programs that have rich experience. And so that they're going to have an impact. And they're not transferring here not to play. They're transferring here to take somebody's job, and they have the experience. I think right now, if you look at an Amarian Miller, number 4 on the roster, in the big game he had last year as a true freshman, how is he going to emerge when seniors and grad transfers are now in the room and have more experience than he does, have better stats than he does, has better consistency? Is he going to grow from that and learn from it? Or is he going to just, kind of acquiesce and they get in that position? I think that wide receiver unit is going to be phenomenal for Colorado, as now Deion Sanders will have more time to find them deeper downfield. But who those guys are out there on the field, May workouts, then getting into August, is going to really tell the story.
Portal officially opens as you and I talk right now tomorrow, which will be Tuesday of this week. Going to be a busy time there, you think? In and out, absolutely. Both ways. You love to say that door swings both ways.
It absolutely does. I think this program is in a place much different from last year. This time last year, when that door was getting ready to be unlocked, you were going to have about 80% going and about 20% staying. I think it's the reverse this year. This team is pretty much built, is pretty much intact. I'd imagine you're going to have anywhere from 7 to 14 players transfer out. You're going to have another 10 to 15 transfer in, and those 10 to 15 to transfer in are going to have better numbers, better production than what you're losing. And they're coming from programs where they weren't just there at the program, they were actually contributing. So one thing you have to always measure when that portal opens, what are the stats of the people that were leaving? What are the stats of the people that are coming? Did we add by subtracting? And then we add again by adding?
If Neely had a wish list, I know it's not Coach Neely, but if just, Neely the fan had a wish list in that portal, are there positions you think, wouldn't mind seeing a couple of this position come through?
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of positions that I think are going to be really, really important. I think the first one is going to be the defensive line. I think the second one is going to be the offensive line. And then the third one is going to be the Absolutely. I think you still are where you were. You addressed the offensive line, but now you have to address depth at offensive line. You address the defensive line, but now you have to address depth at defensive line. I think you can still bring in another linebacker as well for that room. And I think it's pretty important to bring in another backup quarterback, someone that can really challenge for the two spot as you look for the future post Shedeur Sanders, but also so that you can develop and work on the scout team and have, pretty damn good practices when one is out of the game. So I think, man, nothing has changed as the priority list. Keep on protecting Shedeur Sanders. Keep on trying to stop the run. So I think I look for some more offensive linemen to come in, as well as some additional defensive linemen to come in between the portal opening and the portal closing.
All right, so that news, we will keep you up to date at thepregameshow.com. All of the social media, just look up The Pregame Show. You've been around long enough. You understand. It's 2 E's, THEE, Pregame Show. And, of course, the YouTube channel is always popping with the access that our Uncle Neely has. All right, this has been The Rewind on the Pregame Show Network. All right, here's what I want to do. Let's go out, a full shot of Uncle Neely. And, Neely, just take us home with some of those Warren Sapp. Come on. End the show, Neely. Go on. Get them off of you, Get them off. We'll talk to you guys next time.